We inspired a massive...
I should add right here, because I know this is going to be a segment and some people who are watching me might not be familiar with this, okay? RFK Jr. is a soulless grifter. If you go on his campaign website, he looks like he's a progressive with the stuff that he says he cares about with his policy platform. The only things he talks about are conspiracy theories, especially with regard to like vaccine. He has directly caused the death of many, many young people through his vaccine skepticism, the thing for which he has not only not apologized, but openly denied. He is genuinely evil. I think that a lot of his evil is the fact it like stems from him being legitimately crazy. Like, I actually do think he's mentally like, yeah, I genuinely do think he's not all there. But he was weaponized in this campaign cycle by the Republicans, given money and direction to run as a Democrat to pull votes from then Joe Biden, now Kamala Harris. The problem is that RFK Jr. is fundamentally unlikable, and Democrats don't actually want him at all. He coasted by for a while based on name recognition because he is a Kennedy, but when it comes to actually like listening to him or hearing his policies or the sort of things that he cares about, all the weird anti-Semitic conspiracism and autism bit and all, like everything that he, goes on and on about, he was not effective in pulling votes from Democrats. In fact, he ended up pulling more votes from Republicans, especially after he dropped out of the Democratic primary process and ran as an independent. So the reason he is now dropping out is because he has been directly pressured to do so by Republicans. You can literally see a shift in the way RFK Jr. was talked about, where at first, Republicans were favorable towards him because they knew he was being a wedge against Joe Biden. Then after he dropped out and started pulling more votes from Donald Trump, they started attacking him quite a bit in right-wing media. And now that it's become clear that he is currently, but in the weeks leading up to this, it was also quite clear he was going to drop out and endorse Donald Trump, possibly in exchange for him getting a cabinet position in the Trump administration. They started treating him favorably again. You can literally look at his tweets, and depending on the date, it'll be full of right-wingers either glazing him or attacking him, entirely down to whether or not at that moment he was fulfilling his purpose of assisting Donald Trump for the presidency. So, yeah.
Independent political movement. More than 100,000 volunteers sprang into action, hopeful that they could reverse our nation's decline. Many worked 10-hour days, sometimes in blizzards and blazing heat. They sacrificed family time, personal commitments, and sleep month after month, energized by a shared vision of a nation healed of its divisions. They set up tables at churches and farmers markets. They canvassed door to door. In Utah and in New Hampshire, volunteers collected signatures in snowstorms, convincing each supporter to stop in the frigid cold, to take off their gloves, and to sign legibly. During a heat wave in Nevada, I met a tall, athletic volunteer who cheerfully told me that he had lost 25 pounds collecting signatures in 117-degree heat. To finance this effort, young Americans donated their lunch money, and senior citizens gave up part of their Social Security checks. Our 50-state organization collected those millions of signatures and more. No presidential campaign in American political history has ever done that. And so I want to thank all of those dedicated volunteers and congratulate the campaign staff who coordinated this enormous
This was RFK Jr. just 3 months ago, by the way. Yeah, here. President Trump scammed American workers. He promised to bring back manufacturing, raise wages, fix trade deals. Da-da-da-da-da. This is all him attacking Donald Trump. And if you take a look at the comments, here's the top one right here. RFK Jr. continues to expose himself as a far-left candidate by regurgitating far-left talking points. He's just like Biden, except he's anti-vax. This was from May, back when he had dropped out of the Democratic primary and he was actually pulling more votes from Donald Trump. His positions and his support fluctuate depending on, like, he believes in nothing. He is either enough of a grifter or mentally weak enough that he can just be led around by the nose. You know, that's it.
Feat. Your accomplishments were regarded as impossible. You carried me up that glass mountain. You pulled off a miracle. You achieved what all the pundits said could never be done. You have my deepest gratitude, and I'm never going to forget that, not just for what you did for my campaign, but for the sacrifices you made because you love our country. You showed everyone that democracy is still possible here. It continues to survive in the press and in the idealistic human energies that still thrive beneath a canvas of neglect and of official and institutional corruption. Today, I'm here to tell you that I will not allow your efforts to go to waste. I'm here to tell you that I will leverage your tremendous accomplishments
to endorse,
to serve the ideals that we share, the ideals of peace, of prosperity, of freedom, of health, all the ideals that motivated my campaign. I'm here today to describe the path forward that you've opened with your commitment and with your hard labors. Now,
you listen to the Behind the Bastards on him. It's literally like every new thing you learn about him, he's more evil than you thought. Yeah. I keep in mind, when I say he's like mentally ill, I'm not trying to make him seem like a hapless victim of circumstance or whatever. He is an evil person. He is a rapist, as far as I'm concerned, a murderer, with the vaccine rhetoric that he's pushed and the people who died in American Samoa. You know, he's a freak. He's a ghoul. He stole screws from the Challenger, exactly. The Trump call? Yeah, the leaked, which leaked by his son, if I remember correctly. His son, because by all of RFK Jr.'s family, not all of it, I shouldn't say all of it, that's hyperbole. A lot of his family has come out and said that he shouldn't be running for varying reasons, you know? And his son, like, took a candid video of him on the phone with Donald Trump, where they were both talking like allies, because they are allies. This was the point where it became obvious from like an external perspective, the extent to which he was directly on the books of Donald Trump, as opposed to just being a convenient ally in certain times.
It's meant for a horse, not a 10-pound or 20-pound baby. It looks like you should be giving a horse this. And do you ever see the size of it, right? It's this massive.
Talking about horses.
In a system, I believe that I would have won the election. In a system like kind that my father and my uncles thrived in, a system with open debates, with fair primaries, with regularly scheduled debate, with fair primaries, and with a truly independent media untainted by government propaganda and censorship. In a system of nonpartisan courts.
This is something that people like RFK Jr. like to do. They like to talk about the unfairness of the system. They like to talk about censorship and collusion. And I think those are all good things to talk about. The problem is, again, this is literally a deliberate spoiler candidate funded by dark money. You know, we're going to get like tell-all books in the future about how obvious the corruption was behind the scenes. This is one of the reasons why, again, and I've always said this, it's important to not just agree with people on the problems, but on the solutions. Donald Trump talks about our corrupt media, but when he talks about corrupt media, he often is complaining about the media accurately reporting on things that he's done and said that are politically inconvenient for him. You know, it's not enough to hear him say like, oh yeah, the media is corrupt, there's an establishment bias. Yeah, of course, obviously there is. What do you want to do about it? And then it turns out like, this is all leading up to a concession and endorsement of Donald Trump, who wants to further every one of those problems.
And election boards, everything would be different. After all, the polls consistently showed me beating each of the other candidates, both in favorability and also in head-to-head matchups.
This is not correct.
But I'm sorry to say that while democracy may still be alive at the grassroots, it has become little more than a slogan for our political institutions, for our media, and for our government, and most sadly at all for me, the Democratic Party. In the name of saving democracy, the Democratic Party set itself to dismantling it, lacking confidence in its candidate, that its candidate could win in a fair election at the voting booth. The DNC waged continual legal warfare against both President Trump and myself. Each time that our volunteers turned in those towering boxes of signatures needed to get on the ballot, the DNC dragged us into court, state after state, attempting to erase their work and to subvert the will of the voters